Hi, friend. All right, so this is my first video attempt. Um, Hi, my name is Mary, and my handles are Superstar Whimsy, Mary Whimsy. You can look me up on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And this is my first video. My idea is I want to blend cooking and stories. So the idea is you're my friend, and you're sitting in my kitchen while I cook for you. And we'll talk about stories as we do. So, welcome, friend. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. It's Sunday, and Sunday is when I go to the farmer's market and I get my vegetables for the week. And then I clean them and chop them and make something to eat for a late lunch. So first, tea. The idea for stories and food, well, they're two of my favorite things. I love cooking for people. I love eating good food. I love making good food. I love recipes and tweaking recipes and figuring out how to change them to make more of the things I like. And I love how cooking, you don't really have to follow the plan. You can be creative and follow your nose. My dad taught me how to follow my nose and cook ever since I was little. He was the one that loved cooking. So that's always been a part of it. And he always told me stories too. So a lot of this is because I grew up watching my dad do it and I want to spread it. So first tea, and I ran out of milk. So I did do a stint in England. I lived in Oxford and was taught how to make a proper cup of tea. And I'm just going to blow that out of the water today because I'm out of milk. So I'm going to have to use cream, which is a big no-no. But I'm going to have to do it anyway because I don't have any. And that's what we do. When we don't have any, we just make do. So the idea for stories, I love stories. I got a degree in stories in English literature because I love them so much. And some of my favorite are young adult fiction and fantasy and memoirs. I've always loved fantasy so much. I love the imagination of anything can happen. Good versus evil, good triumphing over evil. Oh, we'll leave this out. I already washed my counters, just in case you were worried. So, my husband bought this massive bag of regular sugar. I don't know why he got so much, but we'll use it eventually. I'm not a huge baker because baking, you have to actually follow the recipe exactly, and that is not my strong suit. I like to be creative, just like the stories. I like a little whimsy, a little creativity, and not always following it to the letter or measuring. I don't know. So, I got my degree in English literature and communication arts, double majored. And I have a dream to one day get published for writing stories of my own. And I'm working on one right now, but we won't talk about that today. Today, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite stories from childhood. Oh, one for the pot. You always do. I'm doing my little 2-person pot today. So you do 2 scoops, one for each person, and then 1 for the pot. That's how they taught me in England. So if you haven't noticed, yellow is my favorite color. Yeah. So one of my favorite stories ever since I was a very little girl is Peter Pan. And I actually read the story first. I don't remember when I first saw the animated movie, but it was well into my life. I did grow up when I was little watching I think it was Mary Martin, the stage performance on VHS. And that was so old. But even before that, I had the book version that J.M. Barrie wrote after his play version became successful, called Peter and Wendy. The play version, which came first, was called Peter Pan, and then it was loved so much, everyone encouraged him to write a novel version of the same story, and he made the title Peter and Wendy instead of just Peter Pan. And that seems special to me because I've always found a lot of similarities in myself and Wendy. Wendy is the storyteller. She's the one that Peter feels he needs around him because he can't remember. And she is the storyteller that keeps the stories and helps him to remember and feel a little bit more human. There's that, and I loved the adventure of it. J.M. Barrie is such a good author and such a fun one and such a sad life, and sometimes there's really beautiful things that come out of sadness and hurt and pain. In the story it says, without the hurt, the heart is hollow. And one of my other favorite stories, which is The Fantastics, which is a play, yeah, I think I see that a lot in J.M. Barrie's writing, but also a lot of Whimsy too. There's a part where he's describing the island, and he talks about how each of the children, the darlings, are sleeping and having dreams as children do. And let's see, John and Michael. So John is the older one, and then Michael is the youngest one. And John, when he goes to Neverland in his dreams, he has a lagoon with flamingos flying over. But Michael, who is very small, had a flamingo with lagoons flying over. And that part always makes me giggle because it's just so whimsical and silly and lovely and such a fun visual. I love J.M. Barrie. All right, let's get out this half and half because I don't have any more milk, which I'm so sorry. I apologize profusely. This is not how you're supposed to make a proper Earl Grey. But it's all I have. And you have to work with what you got. Next time I will make sure I buy milk. I like brown sugar. A little bit of molasses in my tea. And I always like to stir the milk and sugar together and have it ready for the tea. Oh, and let's get a little divot here. That way I'm not making my little quartz countertop too hot. It's probably fine, but okay, so now we're going to start washing our vegetables. I always make a little pot in my sink to wash all the vegetables. I love my local farmers market. They're always so kind, and they have the best produce from local farms. And so, yeah, sometimes the produce is a little bit dirtier, full of dirt, than if you buy it at the grocery store, which is totally fine. That's where produce comes from. But you want to make sure you wash it really well. So I always use baking soda, and I'll put in some vinegar and then some water in my little washing tub that I use every week. We'll make a little bath. So let me grab. They're falling. The other thing is that I can't be bothered to make everything perfect. I used to try, and it was too stressful. So now that I'm in my 40s, it is what it is. And it's fine. So things are just the way they are, and not everything is going to be perfect, but it's going to be nice. All right. And not striving for perfection means that I have a little bit more peace in my life. So I think it also makes other people feel more at home. So I hope you feel at home as I go through this new experience again. First time on video, so I have no idea how this is going to go. But the hope is that you will feel cozy. That's my favorite kind of videos these days, is cozy. I love a good fantasy story where you have to save the world or go on these huge adventures, and that's really fun. But sometimes I have to take a break from that because it can be really stressful. And sometimes I just need something cozy, long form, where I know nothing bad is going to happen. And I can just watch and enjoy. So that's what I'm hoping these videos are. A bit of long form, just a friend sitting in my kitchen listening about stories. So that's the hope. So again, about Peter Pan, one of my favorite stories. I actually am wearing a little necklace. You probably can't see it. It's very, very tiny. But in the necklace is a very tiny opal in the shape of a star, a second star. If you get the reference, second star and straight on till morning. All right, the water is boiling. We're going to heat the pot before we put the tea in to make sure the pot is nice and warm. So I'm just going to hold this until it feels hot on the top, because as soon as I pour in the boiling water, it's hot on the sides, but I want everything warm before I put the tea in. But I don't want to wait too long because then the boiled water won't be boiling anymore. So once this feels warm, I'm just going to pour that into my sink. Okay, now that the pot is nice and happy and warm, we're going to add our tea. I have a bigger yellow teapot when I have more people over, but it's just us today, so just 2 will do. So now we're going to have that set. I'm going to put that on I like a strong cup of tea, so I'm putting it on for 4 minutes. So we'll let that go. And then I don't need any more of this. So we'll let that cool. We'll push this up to the side to cool. Alrighty. I don't want to touch that. Alright, so what are we doing? Yes, okay. I didn't mean to buy so many scallions today, but the nice lady who was selling them to me put an extra fill of scallions in my bag today. She always gives me something extra. It's very sweet. And today it was scallions. All right. So besides just the whimsy of the language of J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, it's there's a lot to be said. I Actually, for my undergraduate bachelor's degree, I wrote my thesis paper at the end of my degree about Peter Pan, a character analysis of Peter, Wendy, and Hook. And I won't go into all of that, but there are certain things that I really like to discuss. One thing that makes the story feel a lot more meaningful is to know a little bit about J.M. Barrie's childhood. He was the second son and not the one that his mother loved. Not really. She had an older son that she loved named David, and unfortunately David drowned. And J.M. Barrie loved his mother, but when his big brother drowned and died, his mother went into a deep depression, and she would lay in bed. And so James started putting on David's clothes and trying to dress up and pretend to be David. And that was the only time that his mother acknowledged his existence in her depression. And she would always say, my David, my little boy who will never grow up. And that obviously resonated with James. Poor thing. He loved his mother so much, and he always wanted his mother's love, but she had it for the boy, his brother, who would always be a little boy and would never grow up because he died. So that clearly resonated with him and stuck in his head as he grew up and became a famous playwright and told a lot of different stories. And there's a lot more about his life, but that, I think, is a very important part to recognize in the story of Peter Pan in particular. So there's that. And there's one of the things in the story that has always really made an impression on me ever since I was little was the hidden kiss. If you read the story or you see the play, which is very hard to find these days, most people don't actually do J.M. Barrie's play. They do a take on the Disney version, or sometimes a bit of a mix of both, but the play that J.M. Barrie wrote, I haven't seen done. Oh, okay. Tea's ready. And that's unfortunate because it's really good. There are some parts in that story that are sometimes left out, which I wish wouldn't be left out. Ooh, nice and dark. Yes. Okay. We're going to take this out because I do not like metal in my tea. It's probably silliness, but I feel like I can taste difference when the tea hits. Oh, that's so good. Oops. Like I said, I'm not trying to be perfect. I spilled. That's okay. So anyway, the hidden kiss. In the story, Mrs. Darling gives her hidden kiss to Peter when Wendy was hoping for it, and Mr. Darling could never get it. Interesting. Trying to get a mother's hidden kiss, the special one that is never given more than once. Only one person can have it. And both Mrs. Darling and Wendy give their hidden kiss to Peter, the boy who will never grow up. And in that, there is beauty and there is tragedy. Because Peter can't grow up. He ran away because he was afraid of growing up. There's this part that is only in J.M. Barrie's play, and in his book that is rarely done in a stage play of Peter Pan, where he's been marooned on this tiny island. He just had this fight with Hook, and Hook was upset because Peter unknowingly showed good form when Hook slipped, and Peter reached out to help him get back up onto the island so they could continue their fight. And Hook hated that because he knows that no matter how much he wishes that he had good form, because he was taught to have good form and he knows he's a pirate and he's nasty, but he hates that the person he hates the most just naturally has good form, just naturally reaches out to his enemy to help him back up so that they could fight fairly, when he knows in his heart that he would have never done that to Peter. And he strikes out at Peter because of that and cuts him on the arm. And Peter, because he can't remember, even though they've probably had this fight a million times at this point, they keep repeating, Peter doesn't remember. And so every time someone betrays him, it feels like the first. Which, can you imagine? So that's one of the tragedies of Peter. But one of the beautiful things too, because he will always trust. He's the little boy that never grows up. He will always trust. He will always have fun. But when he's stuck out there, Wendy's there too. And they're marooned. The tide has come in, and it's just Peter and Wendy on this rock, marooned in the ocean. And Wendy knows, and all of the Lost Boys know, but they also know that Peter doesn't know that Peter is actually weightless. And so he could just float off. But because everything on Peter's Neverland is real, unlike other little children who only dream of Neverland, Peter's Neverland is real. He could just float away, but he doesn't believe he can, and therefore he can't, because he just had a fight and he's out of pixie dust. And so he doesn't believe that he can fly away, and nor can Wendy. And so they can't just fly away because there's no more pixie dust. And Wendy knows that she can't tell Peter that he's weightless because terrible things would happen. And we're not sure what. There's odd things mentioned in the book. Like sometimes when there's too many Lost Boys, Peter will cull the group, which is a bit awkward and violent. Very pragmatic of him, I suppose. It's very weird. And but in this instance, when they're marooned on the rock, there's a kite that comes, and he has Wendy grab a hold of the kite, and she says, "No, both of us," because she knows that he's weightless. He won't pull the kite down any more than she would herself. But Peter doesn't know this, and in true hero fashion, he sends her off to save her, and then says, "To die will be an awfully big adventure." And a mother bird takes pity on him and doesn't want him to die. So she has this floating nest with her eggs in it, and she gives the nest to him to try to save him. And Peter finds a floating hat and puts the eggs in a hat so that the bird can go on with her eggs, and then he takes the nest. But in that instant, whenever Peter is with Wendy, the story keeper, he becomes a little bit more human. And there's something about that makes Wendy special. And Peter knows it. And yet, he can't grasp it. Because there is a tragedy in Peter, because he can't grow up. And Wendy feels that too. And in seeing the tragedy of Peter, in the end, Wendy decides that it is time for her to grow up as well and to keep the memories. And it's my theory that when her and some of the boys, the Lost Boys, follow them to England, my theory is that Wendy marries Tootles, the one who spoke up after they accidentally shot her out of the sky, the Wendy bird. Tootles, the one that says, "It was me, Peter. Strike true." I think that left a bit of an impression on Wendy, and he chose to grow up, and Peter can't. And even though I think Wendy did love Peter, and she did give him, following in her mother's footsteps, gave Peter her hidden kiss, tucked in the corner of her mouth. Her heart was given to Tootles in the end. So, yay for Tootles. That's just my theory. Alright, I always take off the... I don't know why. Well, okay. I take it off because it's grimy, and I always have too much cabbage. Cabbage is, there's always so much cabbage when you buy a cabbage. I'm making slaw this week. I'm making my citrus slaw. So, we'll have plenty of cabbage without the two front runners. So, alright. Not a lot of vegetables this week. I'm just making a slaw. Oh, this tea is so good. Alright, let's see here. I'll get my bowl out. Which bowl should I use? I'll probably do that one because I think I have a lot of cabbage. When I make a citrus slaw, you can eat it right away, but I think it actually tastes better if you put it in the fridge overnight to let all of the different flavors make friends. It tastes a lot better the next day. That's my opinion. Alrighty, so let me grab my cutting board here and get my knife. Alright. And we'll get my little slicer here. I don't want that one. I want this one. This thing I got on Amazon, and it's great. It's like one thing, and it has all these little replaceable things that you can do. Alright, let's see. I need a new one of these. This one is not machine washable, and a lovely thing that my husband does is I cook and he does all the dishes, so I never have to deal with the cleanup of this, but I hear it's quite awful to try to clean. But I use it because if I don't, I'm more often than not prone to slice my fingers, so I don't like doing that. So we use that. And then another thing that I like to do is use aluminum foil to hold any kind of chopped green vegetables. I love to take my vegetables throughout the week and chop everything for the week. And the way to keep green things green and fresh and snappy all week is to wrap them in aluminum foil and put them in the fridge. It's weird. I don't know why it works. I just know it does. So I actually chopped up some regular onions earlier. So let me grab those out because I want to chop those up. I don't usually put the onions in aluminum foil, but I did this time. I don't usually chop up onions because I keep onions in my little vegetable jail over here. I don't usually put them in the fridge, but I had already chopped half of it before, so I'm going to chop those later. Yeah, so thank you for being with me and chopping or washing vegetables with me today. I hope you have a good day, and tell me your thoughts on Peter Pan. Um, any thoughts you have. There's so much more to talk about with Peter Pan and Hook and Wendy and the Lost Boys and the parents and the forgotten boys of Wendy's little brothers and J.M. Barrie himself. So if you like this, come back and we'll talk more about stories as I cook and chop vegetables.